Hi, my name's Florine and I'm a developer.
And I'm Adrian and I'm a designer, and today we're going to talk about quantity queries. Right, quantity queries. That's counting in CSS, right?
Pretty much.
Sort of, kinda.
Kinda.
Okay, but first, refreshments.
Yay.
Yay! Another something that I imported from London. I think this is just water, basically. But it has instructions, so you have to twist this thing, then you have to shake it, and
Hold on. You have to twist it 360 degrees.
Oh, it says a very specific 360 degrees, or it might explode. Then you have to shake it, and then there's arrows. I don't know. And then you're supposed to enjoy it. Yeah.
Do that.
Let's do that. All right. So 360 in this direction, yeah? Oh, good God. Oh, good God. There's stuff falling in.
It said 360, not keep going. You have to shake it.
How does this work? You have to put it back, and don't shake it while it's open. That sounds like a horrible idea. Expert shaker.
Oh my God. I think this is about ready. Drinks are served.
Yeah, I'm not that excited anymore. Also, it has stuff floating in it.
Green.
This looks really bizarre.
There you go.
Swamp juice.
No,
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Let's save this for later. Green.
Green, cheers. Cold green tea.
Pretty much.
Smells very healthy.
You might have noticed, we are health freaks.
Like licking the inside of a lawnmower.
Less dangerous though.
If you drink this, nothing can hurt you. You'll be fine. So let's talk about what we're supposed to talk about instead of licking lawnmowers.
Quantity queries.
Quantity queries. Not exactly a new thing, I think.
No, it's been around for a couple of weeks, but it has been made popular, I think, by an article by Hayden Pickering. So what does it actually do?
Basically, it means you can style things based on how many siblings something has.
Yeah.
That's my understanding as a designer.
Yes, I was just about to say it, so I'm going to ask you a technical question. So.
Don't.
So what we're doing is you have a list of things and you want to give them style based on how many list items there are. And we're going to do this by using the first child and the nth-last-child selectors and the general sibling selector.
So that's a tilde.
Yeah, that's the
squiggly thing. I call it the squiggly thing. Not just a squiggly thing.
Okay. So how does that work? What you're actually doing, the nth-last-child. So let's say nth-last-child counts from the last element in the list. So it goes from the last, and it will count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if we say, okay, the nth-last-child should also be the first child, that means that this is exactly the fifth child. For instance, if you say nth-last-child 5, it will count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if that is also the first element, that means that there are exactly 5 elements in that list.
So basically, this is a hacking with pseudo elements or pseudo selectors.
Pseudo selectors.
So I need not elements.
Yeah, hacking. It's creative use.
Creative use. Yeah. So this is sort of like how we used to use floats for everything. In a way.
Maybe in a way. So, but that means you just have selected now you have just selected the first element that is also the last from
the fifth from
fifth from last. You could give that style, but that just means that you will style the first element when it's also the fifth last. But you want to style all elements. That's why
there are use cases for that. I mean, if you say, okay, if I have 5 elements, I want the first one to be different.
Yeah, exactly.
You could do that.
You can do that, but you also want to style the other ones, and that's why you use the general sibling selector, where you say, okay, if all siblings of the one element that is the first and also the fifth last should also be styled.
Should also have the styling applied to it. Okay, so basically it's like a compound selector.
Yeah, and there are quite a lot of interesting use cases for this. But yeah, before we go into that, let's have a look at what the theory we described and how that would look in an example. So we made an example here. We have a list element with a list with one element. We wrote some boilerplate code so that we can see what it actually looks like.
Yeah, that's not really interesting.
No, it's not. So if we have one element, it doesn't really do anything. So let's add an element, and then we will look how it works.
Yeah.
So I'm adding a second one. We used flexbox here, so it will just put the next one next to it, 50-50. But what we did here is say if the first child is also the nth-last child of the second nth-last child, and then all siblings, we want it to have a width of 50%, so it will go nicely next to each other, half and half.
This is actually not that different than how flexbox would usually solve this.
No, probably not. No. So this is not a really useful thing. But let's add a third element. And this is where things become interesting, because now we can do this. Flexbox by default would actually do the inverse of this.
Yeah, so it will put two next to each other and then make the last one bigger.
Fill up the remaining space. But what we do here is, okay, if the nth-last child, the third nth-last child, is also the first child, this is this one, we'll give it a flex basis of 100%, and that means that it will use 100% and then try to divide the remaining space, but there is none, so it will wrap, because we put the flex wrap to wrap.
Yeah. So this is basically one of those examples that we discussed earlier, where you would want the first one to look different based on how many elements there are.
Exactly, and the other ones we tell them here to have 33%, but as it will flex one, it will just fill up the remaining space.
Yeah, so
yeah,
that doesn't really work.
No, it's interesting because when I disable this one here, it will
do something interesting.
Anyway, and then when I add another block, we are going to go back to just 50-50, 50-50 like we have here. So if the fourth nth-last child is also the first child, we are going to put them 50-50, 50% base, and it will do this.
Yeah, I'll just wrap to the next row.
The interesting thing bit happens when I add more. None of these match anymore. So that means
it checks. It's not 2 blocks. It's not 3 blocks.
It will just apply standard behavior we have defined for every element, and we'd have to add some fallback case right here. That will be the default. So.
Okay, so yeah, because standard flexbox would just be put everything in one row.
Yeah, because we have wrap and now we have flex base of 50%. It will do 50-50-50-50, and then it has one that doesn't fit in anymore. Yeah. It will just fill up the remaining space. So that's a very basic example here.
I mean, theoretically, it looks fairly simple. Like what you're saying seems fairly simple. But when I look at the CSS, it looks like really long and a bit convoluted. I don't know.
Well, the logic isn't really that hard.
No. I mean, counting in CSS is not something that I think is like one of its main draws. But I mean, when you explain it, it seems like a very straightforward thing, but it involves a lot of keystrokes to get that done.
Copy pasting. There are, of course, also tools that will help you with that. There is the quantity query builder, which we will link in the description.
Yeah.
That can help you, where you can say, okay, I want this, and it will
generate the
CSS for you.
Okay. I just noticed that it's settling in the bottom.
Is all the healthy bits.
Okay.
Anyway. So, but this was just a very simple case, and We used this in a recent project to actually invert the flexbox behavior, like we showed. So we had the bigger, and there was a bunch of banners, and we want to have or buttons, and we want to have the first one to be the biggest, as from an advertisement.
That makes
point
sense.
Of view, made more sense than to have the last item the biggest, the most important. But we saw that we had to write a lot of specific queries for quantity queries for this, but there is a way around that, because we can also do if there are less than X items in there, or if there are more than X items in there, or if there are more than X and less than Y, and that's just actually a combination of the former two. So
it's really interesting. Let's have a look.
Okay, let's look at this example here. What we have is again a list, and it has a couple of items in there.
This looks familiar.
It looks familiar, and then we have just the boxes next to each other, and they should, when there are less than 5, they should change the color. And what we do here is a little bit of a variation. We're not going to look exactly at the nth-last child that is also the first child, but we're going to count back. We're going to use the n operator, and that means that, and then we're going to offset that by 5. So what happens now is it will still count back from the back. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it goes negative n. So it will count back. Okay, so these 5 will be matched, and that was also, but they have to be the first child. So this one is not the first child. So these are 6. So that one won't match. So if I'm going to remove one, they are less 5. If we're going to remove another 2, they'll still
match.
They will still match.
Because still less than 5.
They're still less than 5.
So that's really a cool way to make better use of space. For instance, if you have something that varies from page to page with the amount of elements that are in there, you can actually change the styling to make better use of whatever is available. And
or if you have a longer list, and then when it's a long list, you don't want to add icons, but if it's just a short list, that's really useful if someone working with a CMS and you have a flexibility. Just by adding more items, it will make better use of space or visual imagery.
So it might add things that make it more useful or more usable for the user.
Yeah, exactly.
If it's a shorter list. But the same is also true if it's a longer list. So let's have a look at that.
Okay, we got the same deal here as before. We have 4 red boxes, and when there are exactly 5 or more, they will turn blue. So let's do that. 5, yay, they're blue. 6, they're still blue.
They're still blue.
So what happens here is we use the nth-last-child selector, including n, which we offset by 5. So we count back from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and anything after that will match this.
Yeah.
So, and we use the general sibling selector to match anything below 5.
Yeah, okay, so they all turn blue.
So they all turn blue. So if I were to remove this line, they will just turn the first two ones blue.
Yeah,
and that's
those
why
are the ones that match.
Yeah, and that's why I use the general sibling selector here as well.
Okay, cool. So this is actually the more interesting, or it feels like the more interesting one of the two.
Why do you say that?
If you have a few elements in a list, I'm not sure if that would need special attention. But if you have many, especially for instance, if you have small screens, that would be interesting to, like, for instance, compact the vertical height. You could adjust, say, well, on a very small screen we could, or if we have very many on a small screen, we could do less vertical height, for instance.
Oh, okay. So you make them more compact. So
exactly.
And of course you could do you could combine the less than X and more than X to have ranges. So you could do something like, okay, if it's less than 5 items, we're going to have really big, great visual representation, and if it's between 5 and 25, we're going to do in some intermediary format, and that's where you combine the less than 25 and more than 5 selection, and if it's more than 25, you're going to do some compact list or something like that. Okay. And you mentioned really interesting bit of something doing on mobile, and that's where this technique is really going to shine if you're going to combine it with media queries.
Yeah. So you can actually optimize even rather sizable things on very small screens. So you could make things conditional on how many items are there.
Yeah, and improve the overall experience when you have a
Exactly.
list of big things or something
Exactly.
like that. So that's I think that's really important thing here is when you make combination. And as you saw, we use in the first example we used Flexbox, and that's quite. If you combine Flexbox with quantity creators,
you can do really interesting things.
Yeah, you can use mosaic layouts and stuff like that. It's really,
Yeah.
really good thing. And the good thing is that it's actually really well supported.
Yeah.
If you look at the Can I Use page for the selector support,
All green.
all green.
Yeah.
Yay!
Man, I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, so this is actually something we can use today.
Yeah,
you
that
can
you
use
can just-
on practically any browser that has some sizable use.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, so I think this is a good place to wrap this up. We'd like to thank you for liking and commenting and subscribing, and we'd like to thank our sponsors, DigiPaint and Asphalt Photo, for helping us make this episode, and we'll see you in the next one.